I thought today that we would talk about what it's like when you live in a home that you don't anticipate being your forever home. So that could include a rental, it could include living adjacent to someone else, it could mean just a temporary place while you were building somewhere else. I think a lot of us find ourselves in those types of situations, and maybe even if you are in your forever home, I hope this can be inspiring to you as well. But that is the perspective I am coming from. We have been living in this little farmhouse for 10 years. In some ways, it doesn't seem like it's been that long. We have raised our children here, but in some ways it seems like it's been a very long time. We moved here thinking that it would be just about a 5-year transition period until we found a property to purchase that had land with it. Needless to say, it has turned into a lot longer, and for a while I didn't embrace decorating or finding my style here because in my mind it was just temporary. And so as time went on, I realized that this was going to be a longer process than we anticipated, and so I began just blooming where I was planted and finding my style and purchasing things that I could take with me into the next place, and even some that I couldn't, that were just for this season. So I want to share some tips with you on creating a beautiful home, even if it's not your forever home, or maybe just creating a beautiful home, period. So my first tip would be to thrift, and I'm sure that doesn't come as a surprise to anyone who has been watching this channel very long. Thrifting is one of my passions, and I love it because of the ability to find unique pieces that aren't cookie cutter that everyone has. You also are able to purchase antiques at a reasonable price, and so I just love thrifting. And thrifting is a great way to furnish a not forever home if you think that you might not have it long term, because you're not investing a whole lot of money into it. So I can purchase a picture that fits a certain spot, and then if I move and it doesn't fit my space, I don't have a whole lot of money tied up in it, and I can then purchase what I need for my new space. So thrifting is a great way to furnish a temporary home, and has been what I have embraced these 10 years. I would say that probably 90% of my home, I haven't done the exact math, but probably 90% of our home is thrifted, and I love it. The second tip I have for you would be to go with a neutral color palette, especially if it is a small space. So our little farmhouse is teeny tiny, and I realized that when you go neutral, it just makes things look bigger, make rooms look bigger, areas look bigger, and so neutral flooring, neutral color walls, all helps to just add square footage almost to your home, and gives you a good place to start. So when we moved in here, we painted everything this neutral color that you see behind me. I can't even tell you what color that is now, but that's what I wanted to start with. And then we did add a green accent wall in the kitchen. And I did an accent wall of wallpaper in the girls' room, still a neutral color, but I did do an accent wall in there. So you can bring in color through accent walls or accent pieces. Drapes or curtains are another great way to bring in color, but starting with a neutral color palette has been a wonderful way for me to stay sane in small spaces. Okay, so we talked about thrifting, we talked about a neutral color palette. I want to talk about combining storage with decor. As I mentioned, and I probably sound like a broken record, this is a teeny tiny house, and I've had to get creative having a family of 6 in where I store things. So for example, in our living room, we have a stack of old vintage suitcases. Those are not merely decor. I have toys, kids' toys in it. I have keepsake things in it. Each one of those suitcases has a designated purpose for storage and looks so much better than just stacking our random things up in our living room for everyone to see. So when you can combine a decor element with storage is a win-win. In the girls' room, I have an old antique trunk that they have their dolls and stuffed animals and doll clothes in, and that way it's not spread all over their bedroom. Being small, it could just take over very quickly, but it's nicely contained in this beautiful antique trunk, and you would never know it. So I love combining storage with decor pieces or vice versa. Another way that I think you can keep a not forever home aesthetically pleasing is to keep it clean. Now that's easier said than done, but living in a place that you can embrace it, but you know that it's temporary, it can kind of like leave you less passionate about the way that it looks, or it has that potential to. But if you can keep a home that is clean, that is tidy, that when you walk into it, it has just an atmosphere of cleanliness and hospitality, I think that that goes a long way to an aesthetic, because walking into a huge living space that may be beautifully decorated but is dirty totally defeats what you're trying to accomplish. So even if it's a temporary situation, keeping it clean and keeping it picked up and decluttered goes a long way to the aesthetic of a home. Okay, another thing that I have found that really helps is changing out the hardware on your cabinetry. So even if you are in a place that has like builder grade cabinets or the cheapest cabinets, some of ours are starting to peel. They are not your top quality, but just switching out the hardware has made a huge difference. So for example, in our bathroom vanity, they had just some cheap silver knobs and handles on them. And I found a package at the thrift store. I think it was like $1.50. And I purchased that, and they worked wonderful in our bathroom and added just a posh little touch that made a huge difference. So switching out, I did the same thing with the mirror. There was just like this generic mirror when we moved in that the previous renters had left, and I switched that out for a wood framed mirror that I found at the thrift store for $8, and it just made a huge difference. So switching out things like that, the light fixture over our sink in the kitchen, we switched that out to something that looked a little more farmhouse. I've done that in the girls' room as well with the light fixture. So the things that you can change easily give a lot of bang for your buck. Things that aren't super expensive, like reconstruction or tearing down walls or anything, but just switching out hardware and light fixtures adds a ton. Another thing that you could do would be like some trim work. So we added these, I don't even know what this is called necessarily. It's like wainscoting maybe, or just accent trim that we put up there, and I cannot believe what a difference it made. After we did it, I was thinking, why didn't we do this years ago? Because it just adds so much charm and character to just a plain blank wall without spending a lot of money. So that is another idea if you have some spaces that you could just elevate with some trim work. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you to all of the new subscribers who have subscribed recently. I just want to say how much I appreciate you. I love reading your comments and ideas. And if you aren't subscribed, please consider doing so. And I would love to welcome you to our farmhouse. I do thrifting, I do decorating, decluttering, just all of the homemaking things that are a part of my everyday life. So welcome if you are new, and I hope to see you next time.